Looking back, the 90s was home to a lot of insane things, from green-colored ketchup to Rocco's Modern Life. Nothing really seemed too weird. This was especially prevalent in automotive design around this time, for better or for worse. Bright colors, smooth curves, and blobs everywhere. Some of these car designs didn't really age well. However, for every blob-filled, bonkers car, there was something genuinely well designed, and this is one of them. The Ford Indigo is one of the most radical concept cars ever conceived in the 90s. And today, we'll find out why and dive into why it barely saw the light of day. But before diving into the car, we have to talk about the designer, who is arguably the blobbiest car designer of all of the blobs, Claude Lobo. Born in 1943, Claude Lobo would graduate from the Academy of Applied Arts in France. And he would go on to work for Ford of Germany from the 60s until the 80s, when he penned the gorgeous first-gen Capri. He was an early pioneer for up-and-coming design techniques like CAD, or computer-aided design. And through this new and fascinating technique, he would make some truly insane works, like his Probe 5 design from 1985. He would go on to work for Ford's Advanced Design Studio in Dearborn, Michigan in 1994, where he would take his skills and make some truly interesting designs. From the honestly quite frumpy 7th Gen Mercury Cougar to one of the best designed cars from the 90s. But to get into that, we gotta shift gears to go from design to motorsport. In 1973, Adrian Reynard formed Sabre Automotive, using what he learned after attending Oxford Polytechnic and then Cranfield University, making race car chassis. Sabre would eventually rebrand into Reynard Motorsport, and would go on to see success manufacturing Formula Fords, 3s, 3000s, Formula Nippon, the Barber Dodge series, and kart. Tons of iconic drivers would work for Reynard, including Andy Wallace, Johnny Herbert, and JJ Leto, alongside numerous teams and manufacturers, including in development on the Viper GTS-R, the Panos Esperante GT1, and even Virgin Atlantic, designing airline seats. So this team had a lot of connections in the industry through motorsport and the automotive world. One of those connections was Ford. In 1995, plans began on a project designed to showcase new technologies for Ford's Indy cars. So what lemons did Ford have to make this lemonade? Well, we need a designer to make something that looks great, not just to the public, but to the wind. And we need someone to make that great looking car into an actually great car. So preferably someone with motorsports experience with stuff like Formula Ford, Formula 3, 3000, Nippon, Barber Dodge, and kart. Real? It was Reynard. In 1996, Ford would unveil the end result, and what we have is truly something special. The Ford Indigo was a low-slung supercar with a carbon fiber monocoque tub chassis, suspension literally ripped from an Indy car, and a special brand new beating heart bolted directly to the chassis, a 6-liter 48-valve dual overhead cam Duratec derived V12, pumping 435 horsepower to 6,000 RPM, paired to a 6-speed electro-hydraulic sequential manual transmission. It can rocket this wedge to 60 in 4 seconds, up to 180 miles per hour. However, the powertrain wasn't just designed to be fast, but to be efficient. Why? Well, with an estimated curb weight of 2,300 pounds, the Indigo could theoretically hit 28 miles per gallon on the highway. That's right, Ford wanted to build these things for road use. In fact, Motor Trend was told by Ford that the plan wasn't to build only a few, but 300 models, stepping into proper supercar territory, much like Ford tried to back in the 60s with the Ford GT40. So we have a big beating heart of a V12, a lightweight chassis with IndyCar suspension, and plenty of accessories to make it road legal, like turn signals, headlights, taillights, a radio, AC, and rearview mirrors. We also have a driving prototype. Here it is. Everything was lined up for a home run. So what happened? Well, I have no idea. I've done a lot of research on this car, but I have no concrete idea as to why. The best thing we can do is just speculate. Maybe Ford decided to funnel the resources needed to produce the Indigo towards more lucrative ventures. You know, a sedan will get you more money in the long run than a supercar, like the Focus, for example. Maybe the PR team responsible for telling the press about the 300 proposed units was a mistake. I have no idea. However, what we do know is what happened to the team after the project was shown to the public. Claude would go on to become Ford of Europe's design director, taking the New Edge design philosophy with him to create the Focus and the Ka. Then, in '99, he'd retire. He would still take part, however, in internal design competitions for Ford. Reynard would continue to be a constructor, even dipping their toes into Formula One with British American Racing, or BAR, or BAR. They became so successful, they straight up bought Riley and Scott, an American motorsports constructor responsible for 24-hour endurance wins, developing the C5R and the Cadillac Northstar LMP. This purchase was so expensive, however, that after failing to go public in the New York Stock Exchange, they went bankrupt in '02. The team and its assets were split three ways between BAR, or BAR, the International Racing Management of Guilford for Formula Nippon, and Zytec, acquiring the sports car operations. Adrian Reynard himself was quoted saying, "It is the worst day of my business's life in the history of the company." Reynard has had so much success over the last 3 decades, and I'm devastated that it ended this way. But we had no choice. Adrian himself did eventually shoot for the stars again, but in a different way. Remember Reynard's Virgin connection? Well, in 2004, he would sign up to become a founder for Virgin Galactic. That would lead him to this. Now, what was the result of the Indigo? Sure, we didn't get a production car, but we did get a working prototype. In fact, the engine in that working prototype would go on to power numerous Aston Martins till '07. But besides the engine, that's everything. One of the coolest concept cars of the '90s, relegated to the history books, right? Well, history books, sure, but this car was featured in other ways. See, the fun thing about concept cars is that while very few ever get the chance to exist in reality, that doesn't mean they can't exist virtually. Video games immortalize the Indigo, from Need for Speed 2 to the Ford Racing series, up to what I believe was the best interpretation of that car in Project Gotham Racing 3. Now you can download the car to all kinds of PC games, like Assetto Corsa, and experience this beast of an idea. A cross between one of the best designers in the world with one of the best constructors of the 90s. The Ford Indigo was radical. It was different. It was the 90s distilled into a car that barely saw the light of day.